Picture this: an actor who once ruled the box office, then became a federal prisoner, shows up in a comic book movie at 61 years old and breaks 2 Guinness World Records while stealing the film from every other star. Wesley Snipes didn't just make a comeback. He forced Hollywood to remember why they were terrified of him in the first place, and what happened behind the scenes. Nobody saw it coming. From poverty to power. July 31st, 1962. Wesley Trent Snipes was born in Orlando, Florida, but his real story starts in the South Bronx. That's where his mother moved the family when Wesley was 12. The Bronx in the 1970s wasn't a neighborhood, it was a war zone. Buildings burned nightly. Gangs controlled entire blocks. Survival meant staying sharp or getting swallowed. Snipes found his salvation in martial arts. At age 12, he walked into a dojo and never looked back. He studied Shotokan karate obsessively, then added capoeira, kung fu, hapkido, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. By his teens, he held a 5th-degree black belt in Shotokan and a 2nd degree in hapkido. These weren't celebrity belts handed out for photo ops. These were earned through blood, sweat, and broken bones. He trained at the Shaolin Temple in China. He competed in tournaments. There was even serious talk in 2005 about him fighting Joe Rogan in the UFC. That's not an actor playing tough. That's a legitimate martial artist who happened to discover he could act. High School of Performing Arts in New York gave him the stage training. SUNY Purchase refined his craft. By the mid-1980s, Snipes was getting small roles, a bit part in Miami Vice, background work on Wildcats with Goldie Hawn. Then, in 1986, he appeared in Michael Jackson's Bad Music video, directed by Martin Scorsese. But 1991 changed everything. Mario Van Peebles cast him as Nino Brown in New Jack City. The role demanded someone who could be charming and terrifying simultaneously, someone who moved like a panther and commanded the screen with just a look. Snipes delivered a performance so electric that critics compared him to young Brando. The film made $70 million on an $8 million budget. Hollywood took notice. Passenger 57, White Men Can't Jump, Demolition, Man Opposite Stallone, Rising Sun with Sean Connery, Drop Zone, Money Train. By the mid-90s, Wesley Snipes was a certified A-list star, earning $8 million per film. Studios fought over him. Directors wanted him. He had the look, the skills, the charisma. And then came the role that would define his legacy and eventually contribute to his destruction. The Blade Revolution, 1998. Superhero movies were basically dead. Batman and Robin had killed the genre just a year earlier with neon colors, terrible one-liners, and bat credit cards. Studios considered comic book adaptations box office poison. Marvel was bankrupt, literally selling off character rights to anyone with cash just to keep the lights on. Spider-Man went to Sony, X-Men went to Fox. The Fantastic Four got sold for pennies. The idea of a dark, violent, R-rated film about a half-vampire vampire hunter seemed like financial suicide. Who wanted to see a comic book movie that wasn't for kids? Who wanted blood and violence instead of family-friendly adventure? Every executive in Hollywood had the same answer. Nobody. New Line Cinema took the gamble anyway. They gave it a $45 million budget. Small by blockbuster standards, but huge for a property nobody believed in. Director Stephen Norrington had never made anything this big. His previous film was a low-budget sci-fi thriller called The Lawnmower Man. This was his shot at the major leagues. But New Line had one advantage nobody else possessed. They had Wesley Snipes. And that made all the difference. Blade opened in August and immediately proved everyone wrong. It made $130 million domestically, another $100 million worldwide. On a $45 million budget, that's a massive win. But the box office numbers only tell half the story. More importantly, Blade proved that superhero films could be dark, violent, and taken seriously. No camp. No jokes about ice skating uphill, no rubber nipples on the costume, just pure, brutal action with a hero who didn't apologize for being deadly. Snipes wasn't faking the fight scenes. Every kick, every sword swing, every acrobatic move came from decades of legitimate training. Stunt coordinators later admitted they had never worked with an actor who moved like that. They'd block out sequences assuming they'd need doubles, wire work, and camera tricks. Then Snipes would show up and perform everything himself. He could do spinning hook kicks that professional fighters struggled with. His sword work had weight and precision. The authenticity showed up on screen in ways CGI could never replicate. Audiences noticed the difference. This wasn't some bodybuilder pretending to fight. This was a legitimate martial artist who could act. The combination was electric. Blade 2 in 2002 was even better. Director Guillermo del Toro elevated everything. The action became art. The horror became genuine. The emotional depth gave the violence meaning. Critics called it one of the best sequels ever made, better than the original. It pulled in $150 million worldwide. Wesley Snipes had created a franchise that kept Marvel alive long enough to eventually launch the MCU. Think about that for a second. Without Blade slicing through vampires in 1998, there might not have been an Iron Man in 2008. No Avengers, no billion-dollar Marvel empire. Kevin Feige himself admitted Blade proved Marvel properties could work on screen. It showed studios that audiences would pay to see these characters if you took them seriously. Wesley Snipes saved Marvel before anyone knew Marvel needed saving. By 2004, he'd become more than an action star. He was an icon. The black leather coat, the silver sword, the dark sunglasses, that cold stare that could freeze blood. Blade wasn't just another superhero. He was the blueprint for every anti-hero that followed. The Punisher, Daredevil, Logan. They all walked the path Blade cleared. The cultural impact was undeniable. Here was a black superhero who didn't need explanation or apology. He didn't have a white mentor. He didn't play second fiddle to anyone. He just was, and that's when everything started falling apart. The Trinity disaster. Blade. Trinity should have been a victory lap. The franchise had made over $400 million. Wesley Snipes was at the height of his powers. The formula was proven. All they had to do was not mess it up. Instead, it became legendary for all the wrong reasons. New Line brought in David S. Goyer to direct his first major film. Goyer had written the first 2 Blade scripts, so he knew the world. They cast Ryan Reynolds fresh off Van Wilder and Jessica Biel to attract younger audiences. Triple Threat was supposed to be the title. Blade training the next generation of vampire hunters. On paper, it made perfect sense. In reality, the production became a nightmare that would haunt everyone involved for decades. Reports from the set paint a picture of complete chaos. According to multiple sources, including co-star Patton Oswalt, Snipes went full method actor and refused to break character, even off camera. This wasn't Daniel Day-Lewis disappearing into Lincoln. This was something else entirely. He stayed in his trailer most days, doors locked, only emerging for close-up shots. A stand-in handled everything else. Wide shots, over-the-shoulder angles, reaction shots, fight choreography blocking, all done with a body double, while Snipes remained isolated in his mobile fortress. Cast and crew would stand around for hours waiting for him to appear. When he finally did, he'd film his scenes and disappear again. No small talk, no collaboration, no acknowledgement that anyone else existed. The most infamous detail? He allegedly stopped speaking to director David Goyer entirely. Instead, he communicated exclusively through post-it notes signed "From Blade," not "From Wesley," "From Blade." On a major Hollywood production with millions of dollars at stake and dozens of people depending on clear communication, the star was leaving sticky notes for the director like a passive-aggressive roommate. "Can you lighten this scene?" Post-it note. "This dialogue doesn't work." Post-it note. "I'm not coming out today." Post-it note. Ryan Reynolds found himself performing opposite someone who refused to acknowledge his existence. Entire scenes where Reynolds had to act like they were having a conversation, while Snipes stared through him like he was invisible. Years later, Reynolds admitted many of his funniest ad-lib lines came from genuine frustration. There's a moment where his character Hannibal King says, "He hates me, doesn't he?" gesturing toward Blade. That wasn't scripted. That was Reynolds commenting on his actual relationship with Snipes. The tension wasn't acted. It was documented on film. Rumors swirled about physical confrontations. Patton Oswalt claimed there was almost a fight between Snipes and Goyer. Some reports suggested Snipes tried to strangle the director after a disagreement about the script. Snipes firmly denies this happened. His response when asked about it years later was brutal and logical. A black man assaulting a director on a film set would absolutely result in prison time. Use your common sense. Snipes later explained his side of the story. He took issue with what he perceived as a lack of black representation on set. He felt marginalized in his own franchise. The studio had brought in younger, whiter stars to take focus away from Blade. What started as his trilogy was becoming their springboard. Whether his concerns were justified or his methods were appropriate became irrelevant. The damage was done. The film released in December 2004 and made $130 million worldwide. Profitable by most standards, but considered the weakest of the trilogy by far. Critics called it messy, unfocused, and lacking the intensity of the first two films. More importantly, Hollywood whispered that Wesley Snipes was difficult to work with, temperamental, unprofessional, impossible. In an industry built on relationships and reputations, that whisper campaign is poison. But the Trinity disaster was just the opening act. What came next would destroy everything he'd built. Tax case and prison. While Wesley Snipes was at his career peak, something sinister was happening with his finances. He'd placed his trust in advisors who fed him bizarre theories about taxation. One of these advisors was Eddie Ray Kahn, who would later be exposed as a massive fraudster. Another was a man named Kenneth Starr, who had connections to Bernie Madoff, and would eventually go to prison himself for running a Ponzi scheme. These people convinced Snipes he didn't owe federal income taxes. They used something called the 861 argument. This fringe legal theory claims U.S. citizens can only be taxed on foreign income. It's complete nonsense, rejected by every court in the country. But when you're making millions and someone tells you there's a legal loophole, it sounds convincing. From 1999 through 2004, Snipes stopped filing tax returns entirely. During this period, he earned approximately $37 million. No returns filed, no taxes paid. He even filed fraudulent amended returns claiming the IRS owed him $12 million in refunds. When the IRS came calling, Snipes didn't back down. He doubled down. He sent threatening letters to the agency, calling them an illegitimate terrorist organization. He declared himself a non-resident alien despite being born in Orlando, Florida. He transferred assets to a pure trust, claiming he no longer legally owned his own money. Every move made things exponentially worse. The IRS doesn't play games, and they definitely don't negotiate with celebrities who call them terrorists. In October 2006, federal prosecutors hit him with conspiracy to defraud the United States, filing false claims, and 6 counts of failing to file returns. If convicted on all counts, he faced 16 years in federal prison. The trial became a media sensation. Here was Blade, the vampire hunter, facing down the most powerful agency in America. On February 1st, 2008, the jury delivered their verdict. They acquitted him of the serious felony charges of conspiracy and filing false claims. But they convicted him on 3 misdemeanor counts of failing to file returns. The judge, William Terrell Hodges, sentenced him to the maximum 3 years. Snipes appealed multiple times. He claimed bias, argued racism, hired the best lawyers money could buy. Every appeal was rejected. The system had spoken. On December 9th, 2010, Wesley Snipes became federal inmate number 43002-018. He served 28 months at McKean Federal Correctional Institution in Pennsylvania. Medium security. Not maximum, but not a country club either. For someone who'd spent the last decade as one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, prison was devastation beyond measure, but the nightmare continued even after release. In April 2013, Snipes walked out and immediately went into house arrest. The IRS placed a lien for $23.5 million in back taxes, penalties, and interest. He offered $850,000. They countered with $9.5 million. Reports suggest he still owes approximately that amount today. Every paycheck, every appearance fee, every residual check, a portion goes directly to the IRS. At 61 years old, he's still paying for decisions made 2 decades ago. For most people, this would be the end. Career destroyed, reputation in ruins, financially crippled. But Wesley Snipes holds a 5th-degree black belt in Shotokan karate. Martial arts taught him something Hollywood couldn't: how to take a hit and keep fighting. The wilderness. Years prison changes a man. 28 months away from cameras, away from fame, away from everything you built. Some inmates crumble. They come out broken, bitter, defeated. Wesley Snipes did something different. McKean Federal Correctional Institution in Pennsylvania, medium security. Not the country club facilities white-collar criminals sometimes get, but not maximum security hell either, somewhere in between. Snipes became inmate number 43002 2-018. No special treatment, no celebrity status. Just another guy doing time. But Snipes used those months differently than most. He read everything he could get his hands on: philosophy, history, business, spirituality. He trained as much as the facility allowed: push-ups, sit-ups, shadow boxing in his cell. The martial arts discipline that had saved him as a kid in the Bronx became his lifeline behind bars. He planned his comeback in silence while the world outside assumed he was finished. After his release in April 2013, he walked out expecting opportunities. Maybe not the same level as before, but something. He was wrong. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with him. The combination of being difficult on set, plus being a convicted felon, plus owing millions to the IRS, made him untouchable, toxic, career poison. Studio executives wouldn't return calls. Agents who'd fought to represent him during his peak years dropped him like he'd never existed. Projects he'd been developing for years, scripts he'd optioned, deals he'd been negotiating, all of it evaporated overnight. He took whatever work he could find. As small roles in The Expendables, 3 playing a guy literally named Dr. Death. A supporting part in Chirac, Spike Lee's musical about gang violence in Chicago. Minor appearances in direct-to-video action films, with budgets that wouldn't cover craft services on his old movies. The kind of films that used to star people trying to become Wesley Snipes, not Wesley Snipes himself. The fall was devastating. He'd gone from $8 million per film to taking anything that paid, from leading man to 5th on the call sheet, from action icon to that guy who went to prison for taxes. Directors who worked with him during this period describe a changed man. Gone was the reportedly difficult actor from Trinity, who communicated through post-it notes and stayed locked in his trailer. In his place was someone prepared, professional, and genuinely grateful for any opportunity. He showed up early, he knew his lines. He took direction without complaint. Whether that change came from prison, from humility learned through hardship, or simply from aging and gaining perspective, the transformation was genuine and complete. He kept training, every single day. No matter how small the role or how disappointing the project, he maintained his discipline. The martial arts that had sustained him as a teenager in the Bronx sustained him through exile. 5th-degree black belts aren't maintained through casual practice. They require dedication that most people can't comprehend. Hours of training daily, stretching, conditioning, drilling techniques over and over. At 50, then 55, then approaching 60, Snipes maintained the conditioning and skills that made him special. In 2019, Netflix gave him a significant role in Dolomite Is My Name opposite Eddie Murphy, not Kevin Hart. The film told the story of Rudy Ray Moore, the real-life comedian who created the Dolomite character in the 70s. Snipes played D'Urville Martin, a director Moore hired for his film. The performance received critical acclaim and reminded people why directors had originally fought to cast him. He could still command the screen. He could still bring intensity and charisma. He could still do the work at the highest level. But even that was just scraps compared to what he'd once had. Small supporting roles, limited screen time, no franchises, no leading man status, no $8 million paychecks. For someone who'd been on top of Hollywood, who'd saved Marvel before Marvel knew it needed saving, the humiliation cut deep. The industry had decided Wesley Snipes was yesterday's news, a cautionary tale, a talented actor who destroyed his own career through bad decisions and worse advisors. Another casualty of ego and the IRS. They had no idea what was coming. Deadpool's gamble. In 2024, Ryan Reynolds was preparing Deadpool and Wolverine. The film needed something special, a moment that would make audiences lose their minds. Marvel had brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man in No Way Home. What if they brought back another legacy character? Reynolds sat down with his phone and made a decision that would change everything. He texted Wesley Snipes, "Think about that for a second." The same Ryan Reynolds who'd been caught in the crossfire of the Trinity disaster. The actor who performed opposite someone who wouldn't speak to him. The guy whose funniest lines came from genuine frustration with Snipes. 20 years later, he extended an olive branch. Snipes didn't believe it would happen. Why would Marvel be interested in a 61-year-old actor with a criminal record and tax problems? Why would Disney sign off on bringing back someone the industry had blacklisted? Mahershala Ali was already cast as the new Blade. The franchise was moving forward without him, but Reynolds is persuasive, and more importantly, Reynolds understood something the rest of Hollywood didn't. Audiences didn't want a new Blade. They wanted the Blade. The one who'd save Marvel before Marvel needed saving. The one who proved superhero films could be dark and dangerous. The one who did his own stunts because he could actually fight. Snipes kept his involvement secret, even from family. The NDA Marvel made him sign probably threatened legal apocalypse if word leaked. He showed up on set, put on the black leather coat again, picked up the sword, and something magical happened. When Deadpool and Wolverine hit theaters in July 2024, audiences weren't prepared. There he was, Wesley Snipes as Blade. At 61 years old, moving like he'd never left. The fight choreography showcased skills that hadn't diminished. The intensity in his eyes hadn't faded, and when he looked directly into the camera and said those words, theaters erupted. There's only ever going to be one Blade. It wasn't just a line, it was a statement. A reminder to Marvel, to Disney, to everyone who'd written him off. You can recast roles, you can reboot franchises, but you can't replace legitimacy. You can't fake decades of martial arts mastery. You can't manufacture the presence that made him a star in the first place. The scene became an instant meme. Social media exploded. YouTube clips went viral. Everyone who'd grown up with the original trilogy flooded theaters to see it again. And again. The moment transcended the film itself and became a cultural event. Ryan Reynolds later said, bringing Wesley back was one of the best decisions they made. The redemption story wrote itself. The actor who'd been exiled for 20 years got his victory lap. And he earned every second of it, breaking records at 61. Deadpool and Wolverine didn't just succeed, it dominated. The film pulled in $1.3 billion worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. And in the middle of all that success, Wesley Snipes quietly broke 2 Guinness World Records. Longest career as a live-action Marvel character. 26 years from Blade in 1998 to Deadpool and Wolverine in 2024. He beat Hugh Jackman, who'd played Wolverine for 24 years. He beat every other actor who'd ever put on a costume. Longest gap between character appearances, 20 years and 240 days. From Blade Trinity in December 2004 to his return in July 2024. Nobody in superhero cinema history had gone that long and come back. 2 records at 61 years old, after federal prison, after industry exile, after everyone assumed his career was over. Those records aren't just statistics. They're proof that talent doesn't expire. They're evidence that redemption is possible. They're a middle finger to everyone who'd written him off. Meanwhile, Marvel's Blade reboot with Mahershala Ali has been stuck in development hell since 2019. Announced with massive fanfare at Comic-Con, it still has no release date. 6 screenwriters have taken a crack at the script, and 2 directors walked away. The project was supposed to hit theaters in 2023, then 2024, then November 2025. In March 2025, Marvel pulled it entirely from their schedule. At the Jurassic World Rebirth premiere, a reporter asked Ali when Blade would start filming. His response was blunt and tired. "Call Marvel, I'm ready. Let them know I'm ready." That's not confidence. That's weariness from an actor who signed on 6 years ago and is still waiting. The irony is beautiful. Marvel Studios, masters of the shared universe, can't figure out Blade. A vampire hunter hunting vampires should be simple. Meanwhile, Wesley Snipes shows up for maybe 10 minutes in Deadpool and Wolverine and steals everything. He didn't need complex origin stories. He didn't need sequel setup. He just needed to be Blade. Industry insiders started reporting that Snipes could appear in multiple undisclosed MCU projects. Avengers, Secret Wars, and Doomsday are likely candidates. Think about it logically. Marvel brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Why wouldn't they bring back the most iconic Marvel character from the pre-MCU era, especially when their current Blade project is deader than the vampires he hunts? In October 2024, Snipes signed with Independent Artist Group. You don't sign with a major agency without projects lined up. His social media activity increased. Cryptic posts sharing articles about his return, never confirming anything, never denying anything. just letting the speculation build. He knows silence generates more buzz than any press release. The redemption playbook. Wesley Snipes represents something larger than Hollywood comebacks. His story tests whether America's belief in second chances is genuine or just marketing. Can someone who served federal prison time truly be welcomed back? Can past mistakes be acknowledged without becoming permanent stains? The answer appears to be yes, but only under specific conditions. You have to be undeniably talented. You have to do the work even when nobody's watching. You have to maintain discipline through exile. You have to be ready when the opportunity finally comes. And most importantly, you can't be bitter. Snipes never complained publicly about his treatment. He never blamed Hollywood for abandoning him. He never played the victim. He served his time, paid his debt, and kept training. When Ryan Reynolds called, he was ready. That's the essence of luck. Preparation meeting opportunity. The physical condition he maintained at 61 remains impressive. Most action stars his age rely heavily on stunt doubles, special effects, and creative editing. Snipes still moves like someone half his age because he never stopped training. That 5th degree black belt required decades of consistent dedication. The mental toughness that earned those belts helped him survive prison and exile. His cultural impact has been reassessed. People now recognize how groundbreaking Blade was. Before Black Panther, before Miles Morales, before the MCU prioritized diversity, there was Blade, a black superhero who didn't need explanation, played with confidence that transcended race while representing powerful imagery. Film scholars now cite Blade as a turning point, proving R-rated comic adaptations could succeed commercially. But Snipes still reportedly owes the IRS approximately $9.5 million. That debt shapes every professional decision. He needs to work for economic survival, not just creative fulfillment. Every paycheck goes partly towards settling decades-old tax obligations. It's a burden that would crush most people.